So this is Daisy, and she is going to be demoing her work and summarizing what she's completed this summer for Sisters GSoC 2015. Okay, Daisy, do you want to share your screen?
All right. Yes. Okay, so this Google Summer of Code session, I was working on the malaria part. I was working on testing the malaria part of the mobile app control center. I had as mentor Mariam Kiran, and I worked closely with Irish, who worked on the malaria part of the MACC. For a brief background of what my project is all about, um, there are 4 mobile apps, 2 of which are Android for malaria and peace track, and 2 of which are iOS, still for malaria and peace track. Then there's the web app, which incorporates these mobile apps. And again, it's separated into 2, the malaria and the peace track part of the web app. Irish worked on the malaria part, while AJ worked on the peace track part. And my job was to test the malaria part of the mobile app control center, which will be abbreviated as the MACC. The deliverables I had for this project was to build an automated test framework for regression testing. This required the use of the data-driven test framework approach. I also had to test the MACC in conjunction with its database, and I had to do documentation of the entire system. Now, for building the automated test framework, I followed the guidelines as presented by this diagram. I had the test data and the constant files, which were kept separate from the test scripts and the data readers and the generics files. And this in turn was kept separate from the execution reports. So all of this formed the test framework which I was supposed to build. And I used the data-driven test approach for implementing this framework because in the data-driven test framework approach, you have the test scripts are kept separate from the test data. And this is really, really good because the MACC is an ongoing project. It's a project which is still being developed. And to have the scripts separate from the data allows for that you're able to implement and augment the scripts without affecting the data, and you're able to have more data without affecting the scripts. So that's one very main advantage of the data-driven test framework. So to implement this test framework, I kept all the data in Excel sheets in the XML spreadsheet format. And then I used an API, the Apache POI API, to read this data from the Excel sheet. This data was then given to test methods using the TestNG data provider. So this is kind of like, this next slide shows like a diagram of how the data-driven test framework looks like. You have the test data, which is kept separate from the test scripts. And after execution, the actual output is compared to the expected output to see if they are the same. And if they are, then that test passes. Let's have an example here. This is a snapshot of the login test data that I had on my local machine. The second row shows, where you have the username as admin and the password as my password are the actual and the real credentials of logging into the MACC on my local host. The third, fourth, and fifth rows are just extra test data that we're going to use to test the login functionality. And the way this works is Apache POI helps in reading this test data from the Excel sheets. It passes it to the data provider, which provides the data to the test methods. So just one functionality, the login functionality, is going to run 4 times because we have four different test sets. This is a screenshot after the execution of the login class. As you can see here, the admin username and the my password username pass the test because they are the real credentials. The others fail because they are not the credentials of logging in the MACC on my local host. Another deliverable which I had was to test the MACC in conjunction with its database. And Selenium doesn't offer automated tests for databases, and it's only used for testing the user interface. So I had to use something else to test the database, and that was the Java Database Connectivity API. This is a great API to use when you want to connect and manipulate the objects in the database. So that's what I use to perform CRUD operations, to create, to read, to update, and to delete objects from the database. One of the other deliverables I had was to write a comprehensive documentation of the entire system and what I've done so far. This is still in the works. I haven't done this yet. So here's a link to my timeline. And my timeline, you can see that I have done a lot and almost all of what I said I'll do during this project, during this time. What is left is to configure Maven to automate the build process. This is in the works, it's almost done. And of course, to have a comprehensive documentation of the system, and that's still in progress. So I think I'm on track. By the end of the week, I should have done all of this, so I'm on track. So in developing this project, I faced some difficulties, and I think the very first one was setting up the environment. I think this made me to be, I think, a week late. There was a problem. Irish had this very comprehensive installation guide, which I followed. Unfortunately, there was a problem with the language. There was a problem with commenting in and commenting out. So I thought one meant the other. I know it sounds a bit trivial, but yeah, that was one of my difficulties. Another hurdle I had to go through was figuring out how to access information from Excel sheets, and I solved that problem by using the API, the Apache POI API, to read this data from the Excel sheets, and then using testng to pass the read data as test data to the test methods. And then one of the other difficulties that I faced was to get the PostgreSQL driver to connect to the database. The MACC, installing the MACC included having a virtual machine installed. So the MACC was running on a VM, and to have the Postgre driver connect to this database, I had to modify some of the configuration files of Postgre on the VM to get the Postgre driver to connect. So that was some of the difficulties. However, I had some accomplishments and successes, which were some of them were to learn new technologies. I learned how to use Selenium for automated testing. This is the first time I actually ever tested before, so it's something that I'm proud that I've learned how to do. I've also learned a lot of coding, some coding styles. I remember the first few sessions with my mentor, she advised me to always have comments in my code, especially for each class, so that when I come back later, I'll know exactly what each class does and what it's supposed to do. So those are some of the things I learned. I also learned about version control and how to keep track of a project. I've covered a good portion of my timeline. And I've had such a good experience with developing a project that I would like to continue even after the Google Summer of Code ends.
Woohoo! Thank you, thank you. We need the help. Appreciate it.
All right. Right, so after Google Summer of Code ends, this is what I plan to do. These are my future plans and the next steps. The first and foremost is to cover the peace track part of the testing. Now, like I said before, Irish covered the malaria part and AJ covered the peace track. But they had different forks of the same project and they worked individually. And because of that, they kind of had like separate code. So I kept having to pull Irish's version of her code to continue testing. And I couldn't deal with both of them at the same time. So the next hurdle, the next thing I have to do is to cover the peace track part of the MACC. I have to refine the database tests. Right now, we have some database tests, but they need some refinement. And one other thing would be to configure a continuous integration tool. So that is what I plan to do in the future. Thank you very much for listening. I had a nice time presenting to you. Are there any questions?
No, so you know that we're thinking about the continuous integration too, and I will go ahead and set up the YML file just on for that particular repo, so that you can be prepared for that. And then I'll just do a very basic one, and then you can modify that as you see fit. But I'll go ahead and do that because I think we need to have permissions. I have to get permissions from Peace Corps to make sure that they set their permissions, and then I'll set it up because we already have an account with CI on a couple of other projects as well. So I'm glad you were thinking about that.
All right, great. That's good.
Okay, and you're going to demo some of, are you able to demo some of your testing that you've done, or?
Okay, let's see. Oh, I'll have to start. Okay, I'll have to start. Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see your screen. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Well, now I see your photo.
Okay. Let's see. What was that?
Let me know when you're ready, Daisy, okay?
All right.
And don't worry, we're going to edit this piece out.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, so I finally got this up and running. Ms. Robinson.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So here I'm going to demo, let's say, the database test. I have, sorry about this. I have the common database tests where we have the before and after method, what happens before and what happens after. What happens before is actually the connection of the database, and what happens after is the closing of the connection. So here is the database test. I'm going to run this. As a JUnit test. Okay, so create operations field. Create operations field. Okay, because the dummy already exists. There's a dummy um, relation in the database which already exists, and I'm sure I created that before this hangout. So I'll let me delete that. I'll delete that and then run it again. All right, so the read operations and the update operations.
Hey, Daisy, I can't see your screen.
Oh, okay.
Share your screen.
Is that okay?
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to run this again. Like I said before, there was already a dummy relation in the database, which I created because I wanted to test, of course. So I'm going to run this again without the database, without the dummy relation in there.
Daisy,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Oh, there it is. There it is now.
Okay.
Every time you speak, it goes away for some reason. But go ahead. I'll see it now.
Okay. All right. So I run as the JUnit test, and create relations again. Create operations. Oh, see that. There's already a dummy. Oh, I see. All right. Okay. All right. I didn't fix that. Okay. So, like I was saying, there was already a dummy relation in the database because I was testing this before. So, I hadn't deleted it yet. So let me go ahead and delete it and then run it again. Okay. So it has deleted, it has read, and it has updated. And I'm going to run that. All right. So we see that after all the tests, it first of all has to, the Java database connectivity API has to connect to the Postgre database running on the VM, and then it has to perform all these CRUD operations. It first of all creates a dummy relation in the database, and then it deletes it by dropping the dummy relation. And all this works because it works in an ascending order of the test method's name. So we have the C comes before the D, then we have the R and the U. So it runs the create first before the delete, and then the read operations, and then the update operation. And so these tests have passed so far. But these, like I said before, the database test needs to be refined. Right now, it's not as refined as I would have really liked it to be. And another thing would be to really get on with the Maven build tool to really automate the build process, because right now you have to run each test as either a JUnit or a TestNG test. So yeah. Would you like me to do another demo?
No, I think that's good. Thank you. That's really great. And so,
Okay.
how many of the test cases have you ran, and how many were successful so far?
Well, right now I'm not very sure because I kept having to pull Irish's code,
Mm-hmm.
and having to either write more test cases or modify the ones which were broken before. So this week I have to, this few days I left, I have to really make sure, refactor the code and make sure that everything works well with the current version of the Mac.
Okay. So when you're running this particular one, so we have an actual server for our automated testing. Do you have to have the all of your software installed on the same test server of where the application is running?
So could you repeat that? I didn't understand what you said.
So we do have a server where we can, I guess, host all of your work as well as all the other students' automated testing work.
Okay.
And then all you would need to do is would you need to have everything stored or located on the same server of the application?
Okay, I understand what you mean now. Let's see. No, you would not, but you would have to have the Mac running. It may not, yeah, it may not be on the same.
Okay.
But you would have to have the Mac running.
Okay. So I can certainly, let me check with the IIT department and see who would be the best person, but it would be good to have all of your stuff uploaded on our server as well. But okay, and this is really great work, and I appreciate it, and we really appreciate you sticking around after GSoC so that we can get the piece track done. That needs to be tested as well. So we'll keep you engaged that way. Any questions that you have for me, Daisy?
So far, no. I not now.
Okay. The few things, make sure that you come to a stopping point and make sure that you push all of your code to GitHub, to the repo. Make sure you submit a PR. I will send out an email to all of the mentors later today just to let them know that they have a couple of more days. Don't forget your documentation as well. Also, don't forget about your student evaluation next week. It opens on Monday. I would suggest you go ahead and submit it, and then you have until next Friday to make any changes if you want to, but at least get it in on the first day. That's going to be a requirement, and then I will make sure that all the mentors, me and Nikki and Anna, will make sure that all the mentors submit their evaluation, and so there will be no holdup in your payment as well. Additionally, Anita Borg and Sisters, we actually have a conference that we're hosting presenting in October, Grace Hopper Celebration for Women in Computing. On the very first day, we have Open Source Day, and so we will be working on some of our projects, and it would be great if you are. I know the timing may not be ideal, but if you could, be available on our Slack channel or either on Video Hangout just to answer any questions for the attendees or the participants of open source, that will be a really great exposure for you on how we do open source at our conference. But I'll talk more about that later, but just keep that in mind.
All right. Could you send me the link of the Video Hangout?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm going to do some editing. I'll probably won't get to the editing until Saturday, just because I have 3 more student demos tomorrow, and then we have to wrap up everything on Friday. But I will send out everyone's demos to everyone and post it there. Okay.
All right. All right. Then you said something about submitting a PR.
Yes, if you can submit a PR for your work on the repo, do you know where the repo is?
Yes, I do. The problem is I've already committed some things to the repo, So I really don't know what we're supposed to submit a PR for again.
Okay, so all of your work that you've done, your test cases, let me see if I can, let me talk to the mentors and they'll guide you. Let me talk to Mariam as well and they'll guide you on a little bit of that. But it would be great to have all of your test cases in our repo so that people can try it out when, you know, when they pick up your work. Did you say that you had the documentation as well?
No, I have just a README file, but not the concise documentation in the entire system.
Okay. All right. So that's one thing also, if you can, the documentation all needs to go on the repo. It's a version control, right? So that we just want to make sure that we have some control over the versioning and so that people behind you can or want to contribute with you can actually pick up some documentation and make sure that it's all, you know, they can move forward on contributing as well. Okay?
Yeah, and do you mind if I do one more demo?
Oh, yeah,
Like
sure. Absolutely. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. All right. So I'll do the demo for the login functionality.
Okay.
Where is that? Okay. Okay. So this is going to demo how I use Apache POI to actually get the data from the Excel sheet and how I was able to get that data into test scripts to execute them. So this is data package here, and in my data package I have an Excel sheet of the XML spreadsheet format. It has many sheets, but the first one is the login sheet. And let me go back to my code. Okay. So what happens is I have this Excel reader which uses the Apache POI API. What it does is just read the test data from the test sheet, and it starts reading from the second row because the first row is always the titles of, well, just the titles. So it starts reading from the second row right up to the last entry where we have the last test data. So when it reads that, it passes that on to the data provider, which is a test NG annotation. When it provides that, and of course, it reads that from the login data sheet name. Okay, we have that from the constant file here. Again, everything is kind of a bit modular because we don't want to mix things up. And if the MACC changes, we want to be able to quickly change the test in relation to that. So we have the login test sheet data, which is the sheet 1 in our Excel sheet. It reads the data from there and passes that on to the login test method here. And it's very generic. So even if the elements change on the MACC, let me say, for example, the username entry changes, it's, you know, the name username may not change. It's likely that it's not going to change the name and the password, the username and the password. So when the data is given into this test method, one by one, it actually executes. And let's execute that. It gets executed, and then it may take some time to execute. what is happening is that each test data from the Excel sheet is being passed into the test method to be executed. So here we have admin and the password and submit, and then we have the MACC homepage. So it's going to be executed 4 times because there are 4 test cases. So we need to wait a bit. The second is Daisy AB, and then my password for password. But this is going to fail because the MACC doesn't recognize this. And it's going to be the same for the third and fourth sets of data. And the results we get, yeah, the first one passes and the rest fail. So that's just
oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, and the rest can be set for, and that can be set for the sign up functionality as well. The the change password. They each have test data in Excel sheets, so it can be executed synchronously without having to put the test data in the test scripts. Yeah. Okay. So that's it for the demo so far. But I'll definitely get the PR. Like after when I get to Mariam, then I'll definitely see how I can get the code first of all modified, and then how I can submit the PR.
Okay, will do. And thank you so much for the great work. And let me know if you have any issues as well, because I know that there are several folders on the repo, and I'll get with the other students also to see what they're doing. But we'd like to have at least some of your test cases and some of your work that you've done into the repo also. Okay?
All right.
Thank you, Daisy. Great work. I appreciate it. We all do.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.